guys, what's going on? All right. So, I know everybody's heard about what's going on with the Electoral College. How some states are passing a legislation that no matter what happens in their state, their electors will have to vote for the country's popular selection, which, you know, like last election cycle, technically HRC won the popular vote, but Trump won because of how our process works, the Electoral College, which our forefathers put in there for these kind of situations. Well, everybody thinks that that is their end goal, is to just abolish the Electoral College. I don't think that's their end goal. And their end goal is actually very well thought out, very interesting, to say the least. So I think they realize that they don't have anybody that can actually win an actual head-to-head normal election. Let's put aside any type of, oh, the voting machines suck, and okay, let's just put that aside, okay? And elections are rigged. Just put all that aside, okay? So we all know that you have to get 270 Electoral College votes to win the presidency, right? Most people don't think about what happens if we don't. That's what the Dems are trying to do. It seems as though they're not confident in anyone that they're going to be putting up for the presidential election. And so what they're going to do, it's not about beating him outright. It's about him not getting 270. Because what happens when you don't have 270 is that it goes to the House. Each state sends their senior representative. And that's where we have a major problem. Because in the Constitution, how it's written for election is that you must get a majority. And, well, first of all, 2/3 have to show up. So that could be another situation. They could just not send people from their states, and then it would put it into a whole tailspin of, that would create a quorum. Okay, but let's not focus on that. Whenever you send it to the House, the senior Republicans and Democrats is almost dead even if you look at what they are right now, okay? But what they're doing is trying to flip just a couple states, and by flipping just a couple states, they will win. It's very complicated. Let's actually look at the Constitution so we can explain it, okay? Okay, so in the Constitution, we obviously know the electors all put in their votes as normal. But what happens if one person does not meet that 270? Well, in that case, if nobody meets 270, then the House of Representatives shall choose immediately. Yeah, we know how immediately works with government situations, but it says this. And in choosing them, those votes will be taken by state. So one representative from each state will only have one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, meaning that 2/3 of the states must participate, otherwise it's invalid. This would make a crazy situation, but if by the fourth day then the vice president shall act as president, meaning the day of the inauguration. So the person having the greatest number of votes as vice president by the Senate. Okay, this is extremely confusing. So let me show you some pictures. Okay, so our electoral college, we have 538 that represent all the states with equal representation. The thing is, that's an even number. So what happens if there is a tie or nobody meets that 270? That would create this monstrosity of a situation. Well, it goes to the U.S. House of Representatives, and that's when one person from each state is going to place a vote. The problem here is people are going to feel unrepresentative because, like in California, we have all these representatives. Wyoming might have one or two. And then we have, but there's 435. That's an odd number, so that's good, but it doesn't really count for this situation. Okay? So, with a normal electoral process, essentially only about 10 states make up over 50% of the American population, which is good for the popular vote or whatever, but in a tie situation, they would only represent about 20% of the vote in a tie, which would probably anger a lot of people. And then all of these states would have, which has less than 50% of the population, would end up having 80% of the vote. Yeah, this would be a complete CF. If you don't know what that means, look it up. So what it would happen, again, it's going to go to the House of Representatives. While most people think this is very unlikely, this actually is what would occur if there was a third-party candidate that took any percent that held it from making 270. Again, this would be used and it would go to the House of Representatives. This has occurred once before in 1836 when we had 4 run for president, and although Andrew Jackson got the most votes from the American population and from the Electoral College, he did not get the majority, so it went to the House of Representatives where they voted for John Quincy Adams. But that was when we had a lot fewer states. Now, take into consideration if we have a third-party candidate in what we now have modern-day America at 50 states. If we have a third-party candidate that, you know, a lot of people love and they end up getting something around 17% of the population, this could definitely make a huge impact. And I feel that this is kind of what they are going for. When I say they, I mean the Dems. They don't seem to have confidence that they can actually win outright. And so they're going to throw up anything against the wall to try to make a situation to where it ends up in the House of Representatives. Which I would be all for the situation if a third-party candidate could win, but it's so unlikely because of the brainwashing we have. It would end up in this split situation where all of these people end up, you know, maybe that third-party candidate gets a lot of the votes, but nobody gets 270, and now we have to go to the House of Representatives, which we mostly all do not trust, and they're just going to pick their person. Although this still would be very difficult because each state would only get 1 vote for president. Now, most people think that, well, the president comes along with the vice president. Not exactly. In a tie situation, the House of Representatives votes for president, but the Senate votes for vice president, which could technically lead to a split party president, vice president, and very awkward meetings. I don't know, it would be very weird. Although we all know that they all kind of both work for the same people. That's why we need to advocate for states' rights. But back onto this. So now we have another situation, because we have 100 in the Senate, which is another even number. So technically it could end up in another tie, because we could, in theory, because we have the 50 states, we would end up with a tie for president and vice president, which would be tie-tacular. And there technically is no set way in our Constitution that states how each state would have to even vote. They would just have to come up with their one representative that they send to make this vote. Now, if we look right here, this is the outcome of the 2016 election. So we could look at this and it would kind of look like, you know, yeah, it would end up going to the Republicans. But we have to take into consideration all of the infighting, insanity that has gone on in just the last 2.5 years. And I feel that this is exactly what the Dems they're going to be trying for, because they know that people are angry, and they know that that's what they're working on, trying to flip people, trying to just make more division. Another thing I want to point out is it's quite laughable that these states are even putting up these electoral legislations, because the Electoral College, the electors, actually have a lot of power. They technically can use what's called a faithless vote. They don't have to vote for what their state says. That's just a recommendation. They can vote for whomever they want. And yeah, it's happened before, I think like 20 times or something. It's never created a situation where it flipped the election. But with the way that our infighting and all of this is going on, I don't put it past any of them to be creating such a situation. This is why we all need to get behind our 10th Amendment, which states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The federal government's powers are to be limited and defined, whereas the states are infinite and numerous, meaning that the states have more power than the federal government. In the last few decades, we have seen a huge shift to this not occurring, and we're allowing it. While we allow it, they'll continue doing it. Our forefathers foresaw such a situation, and that's why they put this in the Constitution. So, luckily we have had some wins for state rights here lately, which is a huge, it's amazing. So no matter if you agree with some other state with what they're doing, you need to support it. Because by supporting states' laws, states' rights, is supporting the best thing. Because the federal government can go rogue at any time. They already are completely rogue. We have had some awesome wins just here recently, which many may not agree with the actual situation, but that doesn't matter. You need to look at the states' rights. So New Mexico, Wisconsin, and California chose to pull their National Guard from the Mexico border because they may need them for something else. And that's their right. That's their state right. Okay, we also have some other situations. Arkansas with their truth in labeling bill, to make sure that people are actually labeling products, food products, correctly. And I saved the two best for last. Right now we have Missouri, who is, believe it's technically passed. They're considering the bill to nullify all federal gun legislation. So future and past. So anything that the federal government is not aligned with their states, it goes back to the state. So kind of like constitutional carry, but even better. In Mississippi, this is absolutely amazing. Their governor signed the heartbeat abortion law, meaning that once you have a heartbeat, that baby is a human. Of course, it's always a human to me, but this means there cannot be an abortion once a heartbeat is detected, which you can find a heartbeat at pretty much any stage of pregnancy, because by the time you find out you're pregnant, you're about 5 to 8 weeks, and the baby has a heartbeat that's visible by ultrasound or by the Doppler, and depending upon how strong that Doppler is. So essentially they completely abandoned abortion with a workaround. That is absolutely amazing. Someone on Gab was running a poll and asked, why do conservatives or whatever pro-life people consider even early onset, early pregnancy, abortions, whatever, wrong? And my answer was, because it's murder. And this is why. This is a baby at 5 weeks. The most recent studies are now saying that the baby's heartbeat starts at 16 days after conception. That's before most people even realize they're pregnant. Now let's look at a heartbeat of a baby that's about 7 weeks, and one at 5 weeks.
Sounds really good. There's only one.
Black is fluid, so that would be your bladder with no urine in it. And this is your uterus. And then in the middle is amniotic fluid, and in the middle of that is your baby. Okay, there's your baby. Oh yeah, you're nowhere near 11, 12 weeks. Lucky if we're 9 or 10 weeks. Okay, there's the head. This is the body. There's a heartbeat. See that flickering? Yeah, there's your baby heart beating. There's a little, that was you, which is okay. Arm bud, and then another, see, there's a little arm. There's the other little arm. So you can sort of, oh, see, that's a cute little picture. You see how there's two little arms and a little foot? So, well, it's not really a foot, it's like a leg right there. And then the other one's probably somewhere right there, it's just harder to see. But this is a little arm bud, little arm bud. Oh. Let's do a measurement.
Okay. 8 weeks.
Yeah, so you're not even 9 weeks yet.
Oh, 8 weeks.
So we're going to put your due date
in
June.
Flicker. That's the heart. Now, it is, I mean, this is so early that if you had come in yesterday, we wouldn't see it. And if you came in 3 or 4 days, we'd see it clearer. You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, it's literally just now getting to the point where we can see it.
Alright, thanks everybody for watching. And as we all know, censorship is very ridiculous these days. Truth is the new hate speech. So if you would like to support my channel, please do. The links are in the description. I also have a Patreon, channel. The censorship and shadow banning is getting really rough.